The transport shuttle's engines screamed into silence as it docked with Atlas Station, the Interstellar Alliance's most prestigious and unforgiving military academy. Cadet Elira Myles stood at the edge of the ramp, staring into the chrome-lit corridor beyond, her jaw set and eyes hard with resolve. This wasn't just another step in her military career. It was a test of everything she had fought for, her worth, her right to stand beside the best, and her place among species that barely tolerated humans on a good day. She stepped forward, boots clicking against metal. Around her, other cadets exited the shuttle, some human, many not. The air smelled sterile, like ionized steel and recycled ambition. Security drones hovered overhead, watching them with expressionless blue optics. This place wasn't built for comfort. It was a crucible, and Elira was already feeling the heat. Her squad had assembled earlier on Earth, a collection of the most promising young warriors from across the United Sectors. She'd expected arrogance, pride, maybe some camaraderie. What she hadn't expected was silence. The others didn't speak much to her, especially not the Trogul cadets with their pale, scaled skin and four-digit hands. The tension was palpable from the start, but she bore it like armor. It was their instructor that truly set the tone. Varkon entered the training hall with all the subtlety of a warhammer. Over 7 feet tall, broad-shouldered and cruel-eyed, he wore his battle-worn exosuit like a second skin. Scars etched into the exposed portions of his face told stories of victories won and prisoners broken. When he spoke, his voice was low and sharp, like knives against bone. "You are not soldiers," he growled on the first day. "You are children playing with weapons. And some of you," his gaze lingered on Elira, then swept to the other humans, "are not even fit for the dirt beneath our feet." No one challenged him, not out loud. He commanded respect through fear and delivered instruction through pain. Every drill was punishment. Every mistake, a lesson written in bruises. And Elira learned quickly, if not to win his approval, then at least to survive. It wasn't that she couldn't fight. She could. Years of underground training back on Earth, under veterans too bitter to serve and too angry to forget, had carved her into a weapon. But she wasn't the biggest. She wasn't the strongest. So she became the fastest. The smartest. She watched how the others moved, how they struck, how they thought. Then she struck harder, faster, smarter. By the end of the first week, even the Trogul cadets couldn't deny she belonged. Not that it mattered to Varkon. During a close-quarters drill, he circled them like a predator. "You will pair up. Weaponless. One rule, subdue or be subdued. Use any means short of death." Elira was the last to be matched. She looked up, and Varkon was standing in front of her. A murmur rippled through the ranks. This wasn't standard. Instructors didn't spar with cadets, let alone in a full contact, no-holds drill. But Varkon merely tightened the seal on his gloves. "Afraid, cadet?" he asked, tone mocking. "No, sir," Elira replied, voice steady. "Just wondering why you need an audience." There were a few quiet intakes of breath from the line. Varkon's lip curled. They faced off on the mat. His style was brutish, forceful, designed to break. He lunged, fast for his size, and she barely ducked beneath the blow. His elbow followed, clipping her shoulder and sending her sprawling. Pain exploded in her side. She rolled back to her feet, breath burning. "Come on," he snarled. "Show them what a human can do." She feinted left, pivoted, and struck low. He blocked, caught her wrist, and threw her across the mat like a rag doll. Her back hit hard, but she rose again. Bleeding now, from somewhere near her scalp. He advanced. "You don't belong here, Myles. You're just a message. Political decor. Meet with a flag." This time she didn't flinch. She met his charge and slipped under it, slamming her elbow into his side. He didn't move. His hand came around and slapped her hard across the face, so hard the sound echoed through the chamber like a detonated shell. Silence. She stumbled, not from the pain but the shock. That hadn't been part of the drill. That had been personal. She turned her head slowly, the sting still blooming across her cheek. Varkon stood tall, breathing heavy, eyes daring her to respond. The rest of the cadets were frozen, hands half raised, unsure if this was still a lesson or something far more dangerous. Her heart pounded. She could let it go. She could be dismissed as weak and earn no enemies. Or she could make her stand, here and now. Elira stepped forward. 1, 2. Then, without a word, She drove her fist into Varkin's jaw. He didn't see it coming. The blow was clean, fluid, and delivered with the precision of a surgeon and the fury of the ignored. His head snapped sideways. His body followed. He landed flat on the mat with a heavy crash, stunned and unmoving. No one moved. Elira stood above him, breathing hard, hand trembling from the impact. Her voice, when it came, was quiet, but sharp enough to cut through the silence. "You don't get to put your hands on me." Behind her, the line of cadets stared, not with disdain, but with awe. Tribal, human, others. A boundary had just been crossed. Something had shifted. The room buzzed to life as alarms blared, red lights flashing in response to unauthorized physical conflict. Security was already on its way. Elira didn't resist when they approached. She just kept her eyes forward, jaw clenched, walking between the armored guards as if they weren't even there. No one said a word as she was taken from the hall. But as the doors closed behind her, one thing was clear. The rules of Atlas Station had just changed. The cell was small, the kind designed not for comfort but containment. Cold light seeped from a narrow panel above, casting elongated shadows on the metallic walls. Elira sat on the bench, wrists resting on her knees, knuckles bruised and swollen. The taste of adrenaline still lingered in her mouth, bitter and electric. She replayed the moment again and again. The slap, the silence, her fist connecting with Varkin's jaw, his body falling. She didn't regret it. Not for a second. But she knew what it meant. On Atlas Station, insubordination wasn't a mark of pride. It was a sentence. The door hissed open. Commander Relin stepped in, human, stern, and thoroughly unreadable. His uniform bore the silver insignia of Internal Conduct Review. Behind him, 2 guards flanked the door, watching with impassive expressions. "Elira Myles," he said. "Stand." She obeyed, spine straightening as she faced him. He studied her with the careful detachment of someone used to deciding lives with a signature. "You struck a senior instructor during official training." "He struck me first," she replied evenly. "Correct," Relin said. "Which is the only reason you're not being shipped back to Earth in a cryo crate." He paced slowly, hands clasped behind his back. "Varkin's medical report says he suffered a fractured zygomatic arch and temporary neural shock. He's conscious now. And furious." Elira kept her face still. "I imagine he is." Relin paused. "You do realize what this looks like? A human cadet, fresh from Earth, knocking out a decorated Trogul War veteran in front of a dozen witnesses. I didn't plan it. I reacted. And now we have a political storm on our hands," he said, voice tightening. "The Trogul Diplomatic Corps is demanding an investigation. The Alliance wants a quiet resolution. And you've become a symbol before anyone even knew your name." She looked him square in the eye. "If I'm to be punished, I'd like it to be for what I did, not what I represent." A flicker of something passed over his features. Respect, perhaps, but it vanished quickly. "You'll be moved to observation quarters until a tribunal can be convened. Limited privileges. No contact with the rest of your squad." "Understood." He turned to go, then stopped. "For what it's worth, Myles, that was one hell of a punch." She watched the door slide shut behind him and let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The ache in her hand had dulled to a throb. She flexed her fingers once before sitting back down, alone with her thoughts. Word traveled fast on Atlas Station. By the next day, every cadet knew what had happened. They didn't say it to her face. No one was allowed near her. But she could feel it in the glances from across the mess hall, the lingering looks from other species, the way even the guards seemed uncertain around her. Human cadets avoided her out of fear of association. The others, she couldn't read them. Then came the tribunal notice. The hearing room was a sterile amphitheater of silver and light. Representatives from 3 species sat at the head of the curved platform. Commander Relin for the humans, Inthala for the Trogul, and a silent Ilvani delegate with crystalline skin and luminous eyes. A half-circle of observers sat in silence, cadets and officers alike. The air was heavy with consequence. Elira stood in the center, back straight, eyes forward. Varkin entered from the far door, limping slightly, his face still bearing the swollen imprint of her fist. He took the seat opposite her, arms crossed, expression cold. Commander Relin addressed the room. "We are convened under Article 7 of Interstellar Conduct, to determine whether Cadet Elira Myles is guilty of assaulting a superior officer without cause, and whether mitigating factors warrant continued enrollment at this academy. Varkon spoke first. His voice was lower now, less theatrical, but no less venomous. She was insolent from the beginning, unwilling to submit to discipline. I warned her. She disrespected chain of command. When I corrected her, physically, she responded with violence. Elira didn't flinch. The memory was fresh and searing, but she let it wash over her like a tide. She waited until prompted. Cadet Myles, Relin said. Your response. She met their gazes. Instructor Varkon struck me in front of a live class. The impact was not part of training. It was punishment. Humiliation. I responded in defense of my dignity and physical safety. I did not escalate. I retaliated. There was a long pause. Enthala narrowed her eyes. You imply the instructor's actions were motivated by prejudice? I don't need to imply it, Elira said. He said it aloud. More than once. I wasn't the only human he singled out. I was just the only one who struck back. A low murmur stirred in the chamber, quickly silenced. Commander Relin turned to a console. We've reviewed training footage. The blow from Varkon was not prescripted. Furthermore, several cadets submitted anonymous statements describing systemic bias in his instruction. One even provided archived footage from prior cycles. Patterns of selective aggression. The tribunal fell into a hush. Varkon stiffened, his jaw tightening. Relin continued. Cadet Myles, do you have anything further to say? She nodded once. I came here to learn. To serve. But if we're expected to endure abuse just to be deemed worthy, then this isn't training. It's hazing. I won't be anyone's punching bag, regardless of their rank or race. A beat passed. The Ilvani representative finally spoke, voice resonating like wind over glass. This cadet's defiance, while disruptive, may indicate strength of character rather than instability. The incident merits consequence, but not necessarily exile. Enthala's gaze burned. You suggest no punishment at all? Not exile, the Ilvani replied. But perhaps a trial by merit. Let her prove her worth. Relin folded his hands. Cadet Myles, you are to remain under observation until a final determination is made. The tribunal is adjourned pending the recommendation of the disciplinary council. Expect notification within 48 hours. The gavel fell, and the chamber began to disperse. Elira turned as Varkon passed her, expecting another sneer, another threat. But this time, he said nothing. Back in her quarters, Elira stood by the observation window, staring out at the dark canvas of space. Stars glittered like old promises, distant, cold, and unreachable. She thought of Earth, of the dirt streets of the refugee zones, of the old sergeant who taught her to fight by letting her lose again and again until she learned the cost of standing up. He once told her, "You only need to stand once, kid. But it has to be the right time." She hadn't known if this was that time. But now that the storm had passed, she was still standing. A chime echoed from her desk console. A message. From Command. Subject. Probationary trial assignment. Classified. Report to Docking Bay 9 at 0600. Bring full gear. She leaned back in her chair, exhaling slowly. They weren't done with her yet. And she wasn't done with them either. Docking Bay 9 smelled of grease, ozone, and tension. The kind of place where ships were born and tested, where cadets stood shoulder to shoulder waiting for missions that could turn them into legends or casualties. Elira stepped through the threshold, boots echoing on the steel floor, her gear slung over one shoulder. A dozen others were already assembled, but none looked familiar. Her eyes scanned the group, a hulking Duroxy with a scarred throat and 2 breathing ports. A lean Haskari female with coiled energy behind her eyes. A quiet human with eyes too alert to be new. These weren't cadets. They were something else, misfits, maybe. Survivors. The kinds of people sent on assignments no one wanted to write about. A voice rang out from the overhead comm, Unit 42, form up. They obeyed without hesitation. Elira followed, finding her place in the line just as a figure descended the gantry above them. Black armor, insignia muted, face hidden behind a tactical visor. He stopped at the base of the ramp. I'm Lieutenant Reyes. You're here because someone up the chain thinks you're worth salvaging or too dangerous to keep idle. Congratulations. He paused, letting the tension thicken. You're being deployed to Ganeth Station. a fringe outpost on the edge of contested Trogul territory. One of our intelligence arms went dark 3 days ago. Last message contained partial visuals of unauthorized boarding. No distress beacon. No retrieval signal. You're going to find out what happened. Recover what you can. Burn what you can't. Any questions? No one spoke. Good. You leave in 10 minutes. If you're late, you're not coming back. As quickly as he arrived, he vanished. Elira kept her expression neutral, but her mind raced. This wasn't a training mission. It was a test dressed as suicide. And she was the only cadet, if she even qualified as one anymore. They boarded a shuttle built more for function than comfort. Black webbed seats lined the interior, and racks of weapons clung to the walls like spider limbs. Elira strapped herself in across from the Duroxy, who gave her a single nod, silent but acknowledging. The hum of the engines grew louder as the shuttle peeled away from Atlas Station. Elira looked out the porthole, watching the lights of the station shrink behind them. She tried to silence her nerves. There was no room for uncertainty out here. Lieutenant Reyes stood at the front of the cabin, helmet under his arm. His face was harder than steel, one eye cybernetic, jaw squared by too many decisions made under fire. "You're not here to prove yourselves," he said. "You're here to survive. Do that, and maybe you'll have something worth proving." The flight was quiet. No idle chatter, no false camaraderie. Just the steady breath of veterans rehearsing worst-case scenarios in their minds. Elira closed her eyes and focused her breathing, her heart gradually slowing. When the shuttle finally dropped out of warp, a palpable change settled over the cabin. Ganeth Station floated in the black void like a wounded animal. Portions of the outer hull were scorched. One docking bay had ruptured entirely, a jagged hole where metal had been peeled away. No lights, no movement. "Deploying drones," Reyes said, tapping his wrist pad. Tiny spherical probes shot ahead, blinking faintly as they scanned for motion, heat, and electromagnetic anomalies. The data streamed in silently, painting a picture of a ghost ship. No life signs. No internal gravity. "Secondary breach detected in Sector C," one of the operatives reported. "Possible boarding route." "Then that's our entry," Reyes replied. "Team 1 sweeps from auxiliary corridor. Team 2, breach directly through Sector C. Elira, you're with me." She didn't question it. Just grabbed her weapon, checked the charge, and followed. The approach was tense. They moved through the shattered breach in silence, magnetized boots securing them to the surface of the corridor. The airlock had been forced open, not melted or blasted, but twisted, like something had pulled it apart with impossible strength. Inside, Ganeth was a tomb. The lighting was sporadic, flickering red emergency strips along the floor. Blood floated in perfect spheres, frozen mid-motion, the remnants of violence suspended in zero gravity like a macabre constellation. "Stay sharp," Reyes said, voice clipped. "Whatever happened here, we're not alone." They split at the junction. Reyes led Elira deeper through the command wing. Each door they passed either sealed tight or left swinging loose. Her grip tightened on her rifle as they passed a viewing chamber. The glass had been shattered from the inside. "Signs of a struggle," Reyes muttered. "But no bodies." Elira's voice was low. If there were boarders, they didn't leave a trace. No, they left a message. She didn't ask what he meant. Instead, they entered the operations deck. That's where they found it. Or rather, him. A figure slumped against the central console, uniform torn and stained. Human, still breathing. Reyes moved fast, scanning the body and activating a stabilizer field. "Commander Jalvin, lead operator." "He's in shock." Jalvin's eyes fluttered open, wide with fear. His voice was barely audible. "They came through the walls. Not pirates, not Trogul." "Who?" Reyes asked. "What did you see?" Jalvin shook his head violently. "Not who. What?" "They moved like shadows. Took the others. Changed them." Elira leaned forward. "Changed them how?" He pointed to the walls. "Look closer." And then she saw it. Faint markings etched into the metal. Not cuts. Not writing. Patterns. Organic. Like veins growing across the hull. "They weren't after tech," Jalvin whispered. "They wanted us." A chill ran through her spine. Suddenly, Elira's wrist calm lit up. Static. Then a sharp voice. "Team 1 under fire. Unknown hostiles. Coordinates, GHKK." The signal cut. Reyes responded instantly. "Move." "Elira, stay close." They raced down the corridor, Zero-G movement requiring fluid control. Lights flickered faster now, responding to something in the ship's systems. As they reached the secondary corridor, they found the first casualty, Rick, a Haskari operative. His armor was torn open, not by blades, but by something that had crawled inside. Elira's breath hitched. Movement flickered at the edge of her vision. She turned, too late. A blur darted across the ceiling, then dropped. She fired instinctively, the blast searing through the dark, missing. The shape vanished. Keep eyes up, Reyes barked. They're fast and coordinated. They regrouped with the surviving members of Team 1, 2 wounded, 1 missing. The walls began to hum with a low resonance, and the organic lines began to glow. Elira stared at them. They're growing. Not growth, Reyes muttered grimly. Infection. We need to extract, the Duroxy barked, dragging his injured teammate. This place is compromised. Reyes hesitated, but only for a second. We leave. Now. They fought their way back through the twisting corridors, covering each other as the shadows pressed closer. Elira fired without hesitation, instinct overriding thought. For every one she dropped, 2 more emerged. They reached the shuttle bay battered but intact. Jalvin was unconscious again, strapped to a med pod. As the ramp sealed behind them, the view of Ganeth Station shrank away. Inside the shuttle, Elira sat with her rifle still gripped in her hands, heart pounding. Reyes moved down the row and crouched in front of her. You held your line. You kept your head. I was scared, she admitted. We all were. The debrief was brief, brutal, and silent. No medals. No applause. Just the hiss of med bays sealing around the injured and the murmurs of command trying to scrub chaos into order. Ganeth Station's wreckage was being quietly quarantined by a fleet of Alliance interceptors before its infection could reach curious eyes. The official report would name it a systems failure followed by catastrophic depressurization. No mention of what had moved through the station's halls. No record of the shadows that walked. Elira stood in the sterilization chamber, scrubbed of spore traces, armor sealed in quarantine. Her reflection stared back from the mirror-like wall, eyes darker, jaw set, movements more deliberate. There was no returning to the person she'd been when she first stepped onto Atlas Station. She had walked into the void and emerged still whole. Not untouched, but whole. Lieutenant Reyes waited outside, flanked by 2 high-ranking officers she didn't recognize. One Ilvani, expressionless and glimmering like glass underwater. The other, an older Trogul with robes of gray and crimson, braided ceremonial cords slung over his left shoulder. Her instinct prickled. Cadet Myles, the Trogul said. His voice was deep, like cracked stone shifting under pressure. I am Counselor Gorin of the Trogul Ascendancy. May we speak privately? Elira looked to Reyes, who gave the slightest nod. I'll wait outside. They entered a conference room that was bare except for a table, 3 chairs, and a low hum in the air, the sound of surveillance suppression fields. Counselor Gorin lowered himself into a chair with the controlled grace of a being long used to diplomacy conducted at sword point. He fixed his eyes on her. Not hostile, not sympathetic, just intent. You embarrassed one of our instructors, he said. Then you struck him down. Before witnesses. Elira held his gaze. He assaulted me. He inclined his head. He did. And yet, many in my house would still call your act dishonor. Even vengeance. Is that why you're here? She asked. To test my apology? No, he said. I'm here to test your future. A pause. Then, he placed a device on the table. It hummed once, and a projection flickered to life. A partial map of the Ganeth sector, then deeper, beneath the surface of the station. Organic tunnels. Webs. Growth. Movement. This, he said, is the reason we suppressed your mission. Elira studied the map. That was under Ganeth? It was becoming Ganeth. She frowned. You knew? We suspected. For years, something has been watching our outermost stations, probing, testing, infecting. We have code names, of course. The Hollow. The Seated Dark. But names are comfort. What you saw was not their arrival. It was a gesture. She sat slowly. And you let us walk into it. It was a crucible. Designed not for victory, but clarity. We needed to know who could withstand them. Who could adapt. Her pulse thudded. So we were bait. Bait survives only if it's sharp enough to draw blood, he replied. And you did more than survive. You adapted. You didn't shatter under pressure. You didn't run. I didn't have the chance. Many have. Most take it. She thought of the glowing lines in Ganetha's walls, of Rick's armor, split and hollow. She thought of the cold, alien eyes watching from beyond the veil of comprehension. And what do you want from me now? She asked. Goran steepled his fingers. I want you to lead. Elira laughed once, sharp, disbelieving. You're offering me a command? Not a traditional one, he said. You're not ready for that. But we are forming a unit. Cross-species. Cross-authority. An unofficial response cell. One that doesn't answer to flags or politics. She went quiet. Goran leaned forward. You struck a Trogul and survived. You infiltrated a compromised station and brought intel no sensor array could gather. And when chaos broke, you moved. Not perfectly, but decisively. That is command. Elira stared at the map again. She could still feel the tension in her shoulders, the chill of Ganetha's corridors. And the shadows? She asked. They're spreading. Quietly. Infectiously. Most in the Alliance refuse to see it. We need people who already have. A knock interrupted them. The door opened, and Lieutenant Reyes stepped in without asking. We've got a situation, he said. 3 probes sent to stations near Ganeth went dark in the last 6 hours. Same anomaly patterns. Central Command is pretending it's coincidence. Goran didn't flinch. Then the veil is thinning faster than we thought. Reyes turned to Elira. You've got about 5 minutes to decide if you're going to sit behind walls or walk the line again. Elira rose slowly, body still heavy with the memory of vacuum and fire. I'll walk, she said, but not behind anyone. Reyes smirked faintly. Didn't think you would. They left Goran behind in the room, the map still glowing faintly on the table. Outside, the station's normal buzz resumed. Cadets drilling, engineers patching jump gates, officers trading clipped orders. Life moved on, unknowing. Elira stopped by her old locker. Her nameplate had been removed. In its place was a black seal with a red slash, a provisional designation. No rank, no title, just a warning, not to be underestimated. She opened the locker, reached for her armor. A new voice called from behind her. You're Elira Myles? She turned. A cadet, young, nervous, human. He held a datapad, fidgeting. I got assigned to your team. Provisional Response Unit 9. Elira blinked. They gave us a number already? He smiled sheepishly. And a mission. He handed her the pad. She scanned it. Another station. Another silence. A different kind of war. She looked up at him. Gear up. We leave in 20. He hesitated. Are we ready? Elira looked past him, through the hall, beyond the walls that no longer felt like sanctuary. The dark was growing. The rules had changed. There was no ready anymore. Only willing. She turned, armor clamped tight to her chest. Her hands were steady. No, she said. But we're going anyway.